Welcome back to the Illuminated Path. This is episode 54. Today you have just me and a very special guest. So John is not here with us today. My guest's name is Lisa Tuthill. We're really excited to have her on with me today. So Lisa, thank you for being here. And why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me, and congratulations on your 54th episode. That's exciting.
Thank you.
My name, like she said, is Lisa Tuthill. I am a mental health therapist and spiritual coach, intuitive coach, and I primarily work with people who are identify as empaths or highly sensitives, um, that are looking to understand who they are, understand what their purpose is, and kind of dig into their limiting beliefs and all those things that are keeping them stuck.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of in a nutshell who I work with. So
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. And yeah, we're kind of going to dive into a lot of that today. Lisa and I met actually like just in a Facebook group in a program that we were both taking, and we've recently hosted a free master class, which we actually still have available. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave the link in the show notes. You can sign up and receive the replay of it. But we're going to just talk about, so both Lisa and I have really worked with like people who are looking for more in life, right? Like entrepreneurs, creators, self-starters, like those who are searching for something more than just the boring like life. Maybe they're looking for that passion, they're looking for that purpose. And this is something that both of us have been through ourselves as entrepreneurs, like really discovering like where we're going, what our path is. Um, so we wanted to talk about what some of those challenges are, especially for people who are maybe at the starting stages of figuring out what that passion and purpose is, and how themselves, like how they are, their health, their beliefs, their nervous system regulation, which we're going to get into, how all of that affects their ability to move forward and go towards those dreams, towards those goals. And so, really, just talking about understanding those challenges that they might be currently facing, and then what kind of work really it takes to start to reach those dreams, to reach those goals, to really be more in alignment with yourself. So, let's get into it. So first I wanted to just mention like what some of those challenges are and definitely jump in and share like what else you've seen. So just that there's a lot of fear. A lot of people are very stressed and overwhelmed, and especially if you are trying to create a business, maybe a side gig, passion project, something like along those lines. You can sometimes just feel really stuck, or you're maybe comparing yourself. I know I've experienced this myself.
yeah, me too.
Yeah. And it's so normal, right? It's normal to experience these things, but it can really keep you stuck if you don't know how to like work through them. And working through them takes time and effort. And honestly, I think it's a continuous process because we're always growing. I don't
Yeah.
think that anybody's ever just fully healed, right? Would you agree with that?
I would. And when I'm working with my clients, I always talk about, it's like an onion, we peel layers off. And then you have to kind of sustain it for a while, right? You have to be able to hold that. And then something else kind of comes up and then you peel that down. And
Yeah.
it just this evolving process to growth and to heal. And it's can be very addicting, right? The more you grow, the more you're like, oh, this feels really good. I want more
Yeah.
of it. And so you keep wanting to kind of dig into it, um, and really kind of recognize that hustle and that burnout and that isolation, all of those sort of things you don't want. And
Right.
so in order to not want that, you got to do your own personal work. You've got to kind of get into the shadow, get into the cobwebs, get into all of that stuff,
Yeah.
and maintain it and hold it.
Right. Yeah, I always say like, the human experience is like that continued growth and evolving. And so you may, think like you've gotten through something and then it's going to come up in a different way. But the beautiful thing about like doing the work and getting to know yourself and understanding where those beliefs and thoughts come from and your reactions, like having a deeper understanding of that and being able to work through things will allow you to like get over those humps the next time a lot easier. You have the tools, you have the resources. Um, so I'm just going to quickly share, and many of you, if you've listened to my podcast before, have heard me talk about just like I've been through this exact thing, right? I used to just, when I worked a full-time job, I called myself just super stressed. And I decided to work with a holistic life coach in 2018. And that changed everything for me. I was able to start to prioritize my health and my well-being. And that was when I really started to have the dream of becoming an entrepreneur. I don't think that without being able to have that time with my coach and like really discovering myself and starting to heal myself, I never would have gone after becoming an entrepreneur and like changing my life altogether. Um, and so I actually initially had a marketing business on my own with my fiance, John. And we did that for a few years and we did really great. But I started becoming really burnt out and stressed there too because things were going well and that was a positive. But we were so busy and overwhelmed that I, again, like kind of put my health on the back burner. And I no longer felt super passionate about that work. So I had to kind of redo it all again, go through the cycle again, prioritize my health again. And then I had been a holistic life coach for a few years and I kind of stopped doing that because the marketing was so busy. And so now I am fully a holistic life coach. I'm in my just my passion. Like this is what I love to do. And I was never able to, wasn't going to get here if I didn't prioritize myself. And so that is really my everyday now. Like I have a lot of things I do for my health, but I try to simplify it and get to the basics. But also when I am struggling with something or trying to work through something, I have a lot of different ways and tools that I can do that. So yeah, so Lisa, I wanted you to talk a little bit more about, you said you work with empaths and highly sensitive people, which I actually identify as a highly sensitive
No.
person.
And so do I. And I
Yeah,
think my journey has been really discovering those of us that are highly sensitive or empaths. I'm sure you've heard growing up, you're too sensitive or you're too much or just get over it. It's not that big of a deal. Those sort of things so what happens in our systems is we have to kind of undo and rewire that part of our brain that tells us when we're feeling something that it's okay to feel that because we've been kind of taught not to feel it
yeah,
because it's for us as highly sensitives, it's super duper um intense. So it's like a real intense feeling that comes over. And a lot of times so as an entrepreneur, it's taken me, so I've owned my own private practice for 7 years in Wyoming. And then I moved to California and started coaching and merging the two. And what I've noticed as a highly sensitive is that I had to do a lot of work on not feeling my clients' emotions and really learn those boundaries and really learn a lot of that. And as an entrepreneur, that can be very challenging
right.
because you are isolated a lot of the times. And, you can feel really overwhelmed quickly because you're taking on other people's stuff, right?
Yeah,
And so over the years, I've really had to continue to work on myself, but also really recognize where that boundary is and really check in with it myself and really learn how to listen to my body, which we'll get into later in this, but really listen
yeah,
to what my body is telling me and really sit with, is this my stuff or is this not? And one of the phrases I always use is once I realize it's not my stuff, I will say, not my circus, not my monkey. Because it's
I
just
love
like
it.
a funny little, like, not my circus, not my monkey. It's your stuff, not mine.
Yeah.
And really learning how to change that perception, right? Like really being able to, as highly sensitives, for me, I can really feel it in my body. I can feel it on my skin. I can feel it. I can see it. I just embody it. And having to break away from those, you're too much, you're too sensitive, you're overreacting, all of those narratives. I've really had to work hard on recognizing those are not mine. That's
Yeah.
not my belief system. That's someone else's on me. And and you mentioned earlier about comparing. As highly sensitives, we very much do that. It's a very, and we're people pleasers,
Mm-hmm.
big people pleasers. And so we'll
Yeah.
say yes to things when we don't want to. And so hence the burnout, hence the overwhelm.
Yeah.
And so it's really important. And again, which we'll talk about, is really getting into the cobwebs and the shadows and all the stuff that does not serve us, really figuring that out so that we can show up for ourselves in a way that feels aligned and feels good within
Yeah.
ourselves, and we're not taking on other people's stuff.
Yeah. And even if you're not like a highly sensitive or empath, I think that a lot of people do struggle with boundaries and people
Yes.
pleasing because you just you do those things because you think like that's the right decision and you're worried about how you're being perceived, right? And you
Yes.
want to be seen in a certain way and you want to have some sort of control over that perception. And it happens all the time in business, but even in personal life.
Yeah.
So when you are in a state of like dysregulation and not even being able to recognize that that's what you're doing, that's what's happening,
Oh,
um, that can really, really happen easily and also just affect you a lot because it really like empties your cup, right? I
yes.
always talk about
Yeah.
like filling up your cup first and just prioritizing yourself and knowing like your own needs. But when you're giving that away and
Yeah.
people pleasing and just doing things that you didn't want to do, I mean, yeah, that definitely leads to that burnout and overwhelm very quickly.
And not even, like you said, even just personally.
Right.
It's not just a entrepreneurship thing. It's that comparison. We're kind of programmed to do that from
Hmm.
a very young age.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
compare ourselves to others and to believe that the hustle is the best way and to not show emotions and not do all of these things. And so it's a lot of inner work to
Yeah.
get to that.
Yeah, so we're here to tell you, yes, show emotions
Yes, please.
and take care of yourself first. So we're going to get into all of that. We wanted to talk a lot about what that path is that we've been through, that we take our clients through, and what we mean by like inner healing, what we mean by the work, because it's not just one thing. As we were saying earlier, it is just a forever process of always growing and evolving, but starting to know yourself, starting to uncover some of those beliefs,
Mhm.
knowing how to listen to your body, all of these things that really make up who you are and how you can best care for yourself and how that has a ripple effect into everything else that you're doing.
Yeah.
I always say, and I've said it on my podcast before, like how you show up for yourself is how you show up for everything in life, especially your business, especially your family, your relationships, that passion project or side gig, whatever it is, like it's an extension of you. Um, and so I always say, like, I mean, 85%, whatever percentage, a high percentage, 85 to 90%, like the work is about you. And we're so often just trying to search for like, what is the answer? What is the next step? What is the 20 steps from now? We all want to know like what's going to happen because we want to be in control and not being in control is scary. And we have to learn to instead take it back on ourselves because that path, whatever that is for you, the next step, the next 5 steps are going to reveal themselves a lot easier if you're focused on your own self-care, your own healing, your own growth. And then you're going to be able to like really develop that intuition
Mhm.
to know what that is, to be more connected with yourself and feel into these things as far as, yeah, like this feels right. This next step is feels right to me, or this desire, this goal or dream, like I know myself now. So now I can actually feel good about this decision. It's about, it is about just being connected with yourself and knowing what it is. And I love something that you always say, Lisa. You say it's about really like coming home,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is. And I just want to preface too that when we do this inner work and we do the healing, so in family dynamics, we talk about this a lot in therapy. Family dynamics is that when one person does the healing, the whole family dynamic changes, right?
Mm,
So you can relate that to friends too. When you heal, everyone else around you heals. And so really kind of remembering that too is yes, their process may be slower, but they react to you. So if
yeah,
you're healing and uncovering all this stuff and you're shifting and you're changing and your perceptions are changing, you can really start to see those in your inner circle start to shift as well. And so I just want to point that out that the importance of healing is not just for us, but it's for everyone around us.
yeah,
And yeah, I definitely say that a lot. That it does. For me, the way I describe it is it really feels like this sense of home. Where and to me, and not everybody can identify with that because maybe their home life isn't safe and isn't, and that's okay. But for me, when I'm saying home, that home is my body, is my spirit, is my soul, and it's all connected and it's all in alignment and it's all working for my better self. And it almost feels like I'm solid
yeah,
and in grounded into myself. And that's what I mean by when I'm saying it feels like coming home is that my body being my home and my vessel, um,
hmm,
and being really solid and grounded in it and knowing that my mind, body, soul are all in alignment, all connected.
yeah. And you just said like it's about that safety. And if you don't feel that safety currently within yourself, like that is the goal. That is what doing some of that work is
Yes.
meant to do for you. So you do have that safety. You
Yes.
can find that home within yourself because we always look like externally for things. We look externally for safety. We look
Yes.
externally for um, you know, the validation for things or the compliments or the you're doing great or like this is the right thing to do. But when we have that all within us,
Yeah.
that's like the ultimate goal in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. And I think really being able to take that moment. So even if you're just listening to this, as long as you're not driving, just taking a moment and close your eyes and really kind of connect with your heart and take a deep breath, kind of visualize some roots coming out of the bottom of your feet, grounding you into your body, and take a deep breath and really think about what do I desire? Some of us haven't even stopped to really think about that. And we haven't really stopped to think about what do I want and what would that look like. So just take a few minutes and connect to that what would it feel like if I
Mhm.
was able to live in this passion project or this desire to start my own business or this side hustle could bring in money for my family or whatever it is that you're doing and some of us just want to make a difference in the world whatever that looks like and when we say passion project it could be like working for Habitat for Humanity,
Mhm.
like it can be a whole bunch of different things or however you want it to look. So really take that moment, take a deep breath, maybe take 3 or 4, visualize those roots and put your hand over your heart and really think about what do I desire? what is my purpose? What do I want to do? And I was going to say what will make me happy, but it's not just about being happy.
Mm.
It's about feeling in control. You use the word control, like,
Mhm.
and being able to let go of that control is a big surrendering, right? So we've got to learn how to just surrender and be in the here and the now. Control's about fear. So the more we are fearful, the more we hold on.
Mhm.
Um, and just trusting the process, which is a really hard thing to do in our society.
Yeah.
So yeah, just really sit and kind of connect with that purpose, that desire. What is it that you would be excited about to show up?
Yeah.
Whatever that is for you.
Yeah. Thank you for having everybody pause and take a moment to think about that because you're right. A lot of times we don't even take a step back and think about it because maybe we have these big dreams or goals we think that are so out of reach that we just shove them aside and life is just busy and I
Yeah,
get it is that is reality, but the best thing that I think we can do for ourselves is slow down and really figure out what you want and what your intentions are.
yeah,
And the best way to start to do that is understanding yourself, getting to know the real you, like really uncovering who that is and bringing out the best and healthiest version of yourself so that you can start to work towards whatever those goals and dreams are, especially the feelings that come along with
yeah,
whatever that is.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
So I wanted to talk a little bit about, so we are all talking a lot about like self-care, and I keep saying like showing up as your best self and what that means. And it has a lot of meanings, I guess, today, right? Like it's valid to, see self-care as just getting outside for a quick walk or taking a bath or um getting coffee with friends, whatever it is that like feels good in the moment and you do feel good afterwards and that's great. But we're talking about like the everyday stuff, the kind of like the underneath work. As a holistic life coach, I really always break it out into mind, body, and soul, like we were saying, um, and how you can prioritize these things. And seeing, like, as a holistic life coach, I had a whole episode on what holistic actually means because the word is used a lot.
it is. Yeah,
But like, what it really means is just caring for yourself as a whole person. You're not
yes,
just a body. You're not just someone who has to work on their mind. And there is that soul component that's not necessarily like the tangible piece that I think that we're all some people are missing, like haven't really dove into that yet. And
yeah.
that's that desire, that purpose. Um, so I've done a lot of episodes on these things, so I'm not going to go too crazy into them, but I just want to like briefly mention in terms of doing the work and prioritizing yourself and how you can support yourself and heal yourself and start to feel that feeling of coming back home to yourself. Some things that you can be doing. So, physical health. Um, we're not meant to be sedentary beings. Unfortunately, with just a lot of people's jobs and such, we're at a computer desk all day. I mean, I'm even guilty for being at my desk a lot. I'm sure you are too. You take
Yep.
client calls and everything.
Yep.
But we need to have some form of movement. So a walk is beautiful. There's plenty of other types of exercises you could do, strength training, yoga. Maybe you're into Zumba or kickboxing. I don't know, whatever it is, try to find time for that in your life. It's important to move. It helps you in way more ways than just physically.
Well, and I
Uh,
even suggest to my clients when they say I don't have time, because that's the biggest thing, right? I don't have time. It's like, well, then put some music on and dance while you're cooking.
mm, there you
Or,
go.
you know
That's
what
a
I
good
mean?
one.
Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to look, it can look different. It
Yeah.
doesn't, you can think outside the box, right? A lot of clients will say, I don't have time for yoga. Fine. Then like when you get up in the morning and you're stretch in bed. Like start doing something small if we
Yeah.
don't like that you already are doing,
Yeah.
and just implement it in there because a lot of times we hear this and then we go, oh, but I don't have time for it. So it's really about thinking outside the box and implementing it because eventually you will make time for it, but we have to retrain that brain
Right.
to know that you can
Yeah.
make time.
Yeah, I always say too, like start small, start slow. If you don't have the time to be doing 30 minutes every day or whatever it is, like
Right.
if you're not doing anything right now, just start a few days a week with the
Yeah.
time that you have. And also because making changes to like your routine in your daily life is already really uncomfortable. So nobody's going to just snap their fingers and be like, well, now I go to the gym every day for an hour. Like that's just not realistic.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But I actually saw something recently. I'm curious what you think of it actually. I saw a post that said like people who say that they don't have time for things, look on your phone and look at the screen time and see where you're spending your time on your phone and take some of that and go do something, whatever it is that you're saying you don't have time for.
So it's interesting. So I don't disagree with that, but here would be my argument is a
Yeah.
lot of people work from their phones.
True. Very true.
So when we look at that and we go, okay, so I'm spending X amount of time on Instagram, really so what I'm saying is when we see that, people can easily justify it, right?
Right.
But what we
Right.
really want them to look at is what are you doing when you're on there? So it almost needs to be a little bit more specific
Hmm.
where it's like, okay, so obviously if you're watching Netflix, that's not necessarily worked. You know what I mean? But if you
Yeah.
see that if you're like Facebook, Instagram, all these things you could easily justify. But what
Right.
happens is when you go in to do your work, you're scrolling.
Right. Yeah, you
We
get
get
stuck.
sucked into it. And so um I think that although that's a really good way for people to start having some awareness,
Hmm.
I also think just by saying that our brains are very smart and going, yeah, but it's for work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think
Hmm.
like really being honest, and this is
Right.
the work that we're talking about, right? Where it's like being able to recognize these belief systems or these conditioned beliefs or these stories and these narratives that we justify, rationalize. And I've
Yeah.
been guilty of it.
No, yeah,
Like, oh,
so
I'm
have
on it
I.
for work, and then I'm like, oh crap, it's been like an hour. I need to get off of this. So
Yeah.
although yes, I do agree with that. I think we also need to, and some of that comes with being truly honest with ourselves as
Yeah.
to what we're actually doing, because most people use their phones now for work.
Hmm. No, yeah, I appreciate that perspective, definitely. Yeah, I think it's about being intentional too, like, and
Yes.
knowing where your time, just knowing where your time is going.
Yes, absolutely. I
Because
set
some,
timers on my phone
that's great.
because
Yeah.
I don't, because I will get lost in it. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Um, yeah, and that goes with some of these other things that I'm going to talk about too in terms of your physical health. Like if you don't have time to cook a good meal or how can you simplify it? Because again, with your physical health, I'm going to say eating as best as you can,
Mhm.
really whole, nutrient dense foods for the fact of there's so much I could get into with food, but we want you to fuel your body, not take energy away from it. So if you're eating things or maybe consuming a little bit too much caffeine, which a lot of people are guilty of, you're creating more stress in your body rather than actually helping it. So think about how you're eating on a regular basis. How can you simplify that? I make the most simple, like quick meals that I could possibly think of. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean I never order food out or never eat something that's not great because I'm not going to pretend like I'm perfect or tell you to be
Right.
perfect, but
Yeah.
find ways that you can simplify these things and support your body rather than harming it, I guess. And then that goes with hydrating too. I know I mentioned drinking a ton of coffee or just being dehydrated. A lot of people actually don't drink enough water.
Yep.
And that's another really great example of being unable to know where your body's at, because one of the biggest things that I will do is at the end of the day, if I start to feel a little anxious or something, I'm like, oh, I didn't drink enough water today. And it's almost always like that simple.
Yeah.
But simple things like your food and your water intake and not moving can make you feel either incredible or feel really bad.
Yeah.
Um, and prioritizing your sleep if you can. I know people with younger kids, it's hard and schedules and all of that, but that's definitely a time, put down the phone if you can at night, get to bed, get your sleep in as much as you can, because if you're running on no sleep, that's going to really affect you too.
Well, and I want to just point out, and this was one of my biggest indicators, is I don't sleep well at night. And that's a big sign of a dysregulated nervous system.
Yeah.
And so, as I continue to work on my nervous system, the better I'm sleeping.
Yep.
And so I just want that to kind of, for people having that on their radar is, oh, if I'm waking up a lot, or if I wake up easily, or, things like that, you're most likely have a dysregulated nervous system. You're in fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah. Yep. I've been there too, for sure.
Yep.
And it's a symptom, like, and a sign for you to recognize and say, oh, I'm not able to sleep well. I'm trying to go to bed early. I'm trying to get the sleep in that I need, and I'm just not sleeping well. What
Yeah.
is that? What is that trying to tell me? And what can I
Yes.
do to, again, to just support yourself?
Yeah.
I mentioned, well, let me do mindset first, because we're gonna do a lot more chatting about mindset, because your mindset is it's huge. It's in everything. It's in your limiting beliefs. It's in your daily thoughts, and your thoughts create your beliefs. And then we're all running on autopilot. Like, our subconscious mind makes up like 95%
I
of our
think
daily
it might be
thoughts.
more, but yeah, it's a pretty high, and it goes into everything you're talking about. It goes into trauma, healing, the way you were raised, like everything. How
Yeah.
we think goes into
Right.
that, and it drives all of it.
Right. That was, I think, one of the biggest like shifting points for me when I started working with my holistic life coach like 6 years ago, was her teaching me about my subconscious mind and like the thoughts and beliefs that I have, where they come from.
Yeah,
I know you're going to get into that a little bit with like inner child stuff and your limiting beliefs, but we work on autopilot. So our subconscious just wants things to be easier for us. So it just refers back to like the beliefs and thoughts and memories and like imprinted things that we have.
yeah,
And we just keep taking action over and over and over.
yep,
And that is why I say it's hard to like just make a huge change, like
mhm,
incorporating a new habit and saying, well, now I'm someone who goes to the gym every day for an hour.
yeah,
That's really uncomfortable. That's not a habit that's been like um that you've taken on yet. And so it takes time. It takes work. It takes being patient with yourself too.
yeah,
But we know that it is possible to rewire your mind.
mhm,
Um, it's called neuroplasticity. That literally just means like your brain's ability to create new neural pathways. So the mindset is a huge piece to all of this, and we'll
yeah,
keep getting into that. And I mentioned the soul and just the energy that you're in and having that purpose, having that passion. When I was so stressed, like when I was working in a 9 to 5 job that I didn't like, I didn't feel like I had that purpose or that passion. And I was just like, I just kind of felt like a drone.
yeah.
I
Well,
was just,
especially being an HSP, a highly sensitive person,
mhm.
you were taking on other people's energies and sometimes maybe not realizing it and then depleting it more.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of just my spiel about like your mind, your body, your soul, taking care of yourself as your whole person. But did you want to get into a little bit of like that inner child healing, traumas, maybe limiting beliefs, like what some
Yeah,
of that might look like?
yeah. So, in the therapy world, and I'm sure if those of you who are listening have been in therapy, they talk about inner child work. Yes, it's very valid and very important.
Mhm.
However, my approach about looking at it, again, this goes back to perspective and mindset, is we're not looking at inner child work as a let's go in and dig in there and relive everything that you've gone through and done. No, what it's about is as a child, what were your experiences that created those neural pathways and got you to where you are right now, and which ones are positive and which ones are ones that aren't working for you.
Yeah.
So it could be something, as simple as you raised your hand in class and you got the answer wrong and you felt like everyone was laughing at you. So that could be what we would call like it's been imprinted, right, on you as I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't know anything. Those sort of things. Now, you mentioned trauma too. A lot of people, we all know the big traumas, the big T's. So we know sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. What trauma is when our bodies are unable to process the emotions that are coming in and being able to understand what's really happening. So, for example, the one I just gave you, if you were getting or felt, whether it was accurate or not, it doesn't really matter if it's the truth or
Right.
not because it's how you processed it, right? So if you
Right.
raise your hand, you get, oh no, that's wrong, and everyone's laughing at you, or you think everyone's laughing at you, that's a small T. That's a small trauma because you were unable to process what was really going on around you. And now you've created this neural pathway to say, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah, all these sort of things, right?
Yeah.
So even we can even look at like I would go as far as saying everyone in the world has had trauma.
Yeah.
Um and you can even go like COVID. COVID was a trauma for a lot of people. You can have secondary trauma too. So when you hear someone um so for example, I don't know if like many, many, many years ago, there was a little boy who was all over the news that was in a cage and it was on CNN. It was like everywhere. Well, I worked with the foster mom that took him in
Um,
and and I knew the child, and I was having kind of secondary trauma because of the experiences that this little boy went in. The
yeah.
stepdad or the boyfriend didn't like him, I can't remember. And literally out in Wyoming, left him in a cage during
Oh my
thunderstorms,
gosh.
during everything. He had a bucket. I mean, it was awful. And so by hearing this, I could feel it. And I could feel the intensity and so you can also have secondary traumas. So again, all of this is like you said, it creates and imprints these neural pathways into our brain. And so this is what I'm talking about with like working with inner child work is really what is your belief systems? What are the things that you as a child were imprinted and now has become your belief system, and when we can break those down 99% of the time your people go, oh, I don't even believe that. That's not like once we're able to kind of go through that, we create a new neural pathway in a system, where it's like, oh no, I am smart, oh no, I am, being able to kind of rewire a lot of that, and then that goes into the nervous system regulation, right?
Yeah.
So what I was talking about with the child who raised her hand, what happened in that moment is her body was unable to process the well, I just got the answer wrong. I am smart. That doesn't mean I'm stupid. It just means that I
Right.
didn't, whatever, like being able to as adults, right? Be able to kind of separate that. And so what happened in her nervous system is it got dysregulated in that moment. Oh, I'm not good enough. And you get kind of like sad and you kind of, crunch down and do a lot of those sort of things. And so that in that moment, your body went through this sort of dysregulation. And now every time as an adult, you're afraid to speak up because you think you're going to get it wrong or you're not smart enough, and then therefore your nervous system is dysregulated.
Right. Yeah. And like not feeling safe in that moment. I
Mhm.
mean, nervous system regulation is so much about feeling
Safety.
safe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I know I've mentioned before with you, Kate, is where we want our nervous system to be is the example I always use is like a zebra getting some water in Africa. Here can hear or feel or sense, right? The lion is there.
Mhm.
So therefore, that's what we want. Our nervous system is our alarm system, and we
Right.
want it to work appropriately. And so what happens with the zebra is it hears, senses the lion's there, nervous system does what it's supposed to do, goes into overdrive, uh-oh, alert, alert, and then takes off, right? But what the difference between what a zebra can do and where most of us as humans are
Mhm.
is once that zebra's out of danger, the alarm goes off, goes back to drinking the water, doesn't even think about the lion anymore.
Right.
But what we do as humans is our nervous system doesn't do that. It
Yeah.
stays on hyper alert. Therefore, we stay in fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to get it to that safety piece that you're talking about, where it's able to alert us and accurately alert us.
Right.
Because if you use the little girl as the example, when she's now an adult in the boardroom and she has an answer to the question, her nervous system's going alert, 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 not safe, not safe, not safe.
Yeah.
But we don't want it to be there. We want it to be where she feels safe, able to raise her hand. Whether she gets the answer right or wrong, it doesn't matter because she's safe within herself.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that example, and you've shared that with me before, but and it's just so different for us as adults. Like so many people, those alerts that we have, things that cause us stress are not actual life and death situations
Correct.
where like
Yes.
a zebra, it is like a potential life or death
Yeah.
situation. And when it knows it's safe again, it could go back into its normal state, the rest and
Yep.
digest.
Yep.
But we're not in life and death situations most of the time, but we're still getting triggered. The alarm system's going off, but we don't have that definitive thing to say, okay, you're safe now.
Yeah.
So we have to learn how to do that for ourselves and sense, okay, if there's an alert going off, there's an alarm going off, and I am getting triggered by something, something is stressing my nervous system out. What is that?
Yeah.
Like, how can we actually learn to sense when that's happening and have the knowing of what we can do to help ourselves, to bring ourselves back down, because we have to really do that for ourselves.
Yeah.
There is like, I mean, have you done anything with, not done anything, but like, do you ever talk about like, there is, co-regulation, like you can have maybe help from someone else, a partner or
Absolutely.
a loved one or whatever, or
Yeah.
pet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To help you just calm down and
Yeah.
be brought back down. But besides that as like an option, we really have to figure out how to do that for ourselves and create safety for ourselves, right?
Well, and we have to have that awareness first too, right? It
Right.
being
Right.
able to recognize that we are on hyper alert all the time, or the opposite, which is freeze or fawn
Mhm.
state, where we're just not engaged in
Right.
life at all. And you can fluctuate, right? You have to remember that you can go from fight, flight, or free. You can be any of them, right? And
Hmm.
so really taking a look at what you're alluding to, Kate, I think is being able to be in that status in our nervous system where we are in able to make a decision. And when we're making decisions from a dysregulated nervous system, we're not making it in our best interest. We're making it from a safe, I feel like I'm not safe
Right.
decision. And so being able to have the room to breathe,
Hmm.
assess the situation, and then make a decision, that's a regulated nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah. And when people are making a decision from like an I'm not safe position, right? You've mentioned to me before is that's kind of when we try to like avoid,
Oh yeah.
or like what else would you
We
say happens in
avoid,
that state?
we oh, what's the word? You and I were just talking about this. Oh my gosh, what's the word? We're avoidant. We
Yeah.
also justify it. We
Oh, right.
rationalize it. Maybe it wasn't you, maybe it was my client before you, but we rationalize it, we justify it. We so like for example, if you are yelling at your spouse or your kids or whatever it is, and it's unproportioned to the situation, that's
Right.
from a response of fight, flight, or freeze, right? That's a dysregulated nervous system. I'm not saying that when your nervous system's regulated, you're not going to yell and fight. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying
Yeah.
you're able to come at it without that attack, right? So I'm feeling like you just attacked me. I'm going to attack back, or I'm going to freeze. I'm going to avoid. I'm going to rationalize my behavior and
Mhm.
justify my behavior. Um, and that's something I think at least I really try to teach my boys is you need to take responsibility for your behavior. You can be mad, you can be sad, you can be upset, you can be frustrated, you can have all of the emotions, but
Yeah.
it's how you react from those emotions
Hmm.
is what's going to tell me if your nervous system's dysregulated
Right. Right. Yeah.
and
And
how you behave.
yeah, being able to make a decision and know, like, okay, I am angry. Like, what
Yeah.
can I do for myself? And that's
Yeah.
hard to get to that point of not reacting. And that's what we're saying. Like, that's the work that you put in to get to that point of being able to recognize that. And all of the work that I was talking about before, the taking care of yourself, the
Yeah.
your movement, your sleep, like I really see that as being proactive in terms of helping yourself to not be dysregulated. Because if you're
Absolutely.
not prioritizing your health and your well-being, it's going to be even easier to feel that stress so fast, to have a more dysregulated nervous system because you're not even supporting your physical body first.
Mhm.
So you're already just kind of in a not so great space
Yeah.
because your body doesn't feel good, and that's all connected in your nervous
Well,
system.
and it's important to recognize. So I always tell my clients too, if you're triggered, that's a you problem.
Hmm.
And you've got to figure that out. What, so because otherwise, if you're not triggered, then it's going to be a neutral conversation. But if you get triggered, there's something in there. It's just being triggered is just a way for your body to tell you there's something to work on.
Yeah.
Right. And so one of the ways that you can do that is if you get triggered, you talk about moving your body, it to go out and go for a walk. Go out and rah, 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 do whatever you need to do because what happens is if we don't move that out of our bodies, and this also goes with trauma, if we don't move the stuff out of our bodies, it stays in our bodies. This
Right.
is why there's a big epidemic of autoimmune. I have an autoimmune disease.
Hmm.
And when I work with my naturopath, 85% of my autoimmune is emotions.
Yeah. Because it's all energy,
85%.
right?
It's all energy.
Mhm.
And so her and I are working on moving and shifting through all of that emotions and getting that stuff out of my body.
Yeah.
And so then the reason they put everything under autoimmune is because they can't figure it out.
Right.
They don't know what to call it. And
Hmm.
really what it is a dysregulated nervous system. And it's where we've stored all of that energy, all of that dysregulation, all of that trauma, all of that triggers everything in our body. And so it's so important that when you feel triggered, go for a walk. Because what happens when we're moving is it moves through our body and out.
Right.
And I think that's why you're saying it's so important to move our bodies, because it's not just to stay healthy, it's
Right.
also literally to help us shift through the energy.
Yeah. Yeah, to be able to just process things from start to finish rather
Yeah.
than having it get stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's having that, like you were saying, like that in the moment awareness of this is what's happening and what can I do to actually let it process through, let it go all the way through me instead of letting it get stuck. And integrating, I know you talk a lot about having like a toolbox or
Mhm.
like just resources and figuring out what it is that works for you, helps
Yeah.
you in those moments.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, having more in your toolbox is always better because some days it'll work and some days it won't. So the more you have, the better.
Right. Yeah. Um, so that was a lot on nervous system regulation. I'm really glad we dove into that because it's talked about a lot.
It is.
But people aren't really sure what to do.
What it means.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot that can be done, and there's a lot of supportive things. And like I said, there's that proactive piece, there's that taking care of yourself first and helping support you.
Yeah.
And then there's the knowing yourself and having more awareness. And that goes back to even like your beliefs, because your beliefs play a part in that too, right? Like if you
Yeah.
believe something and that's part of what triggered you,
Yeah.
that can cause you to go into a whole cycle
Yeah.
of that.
And one of the biggest ways you can ask yourself is this true?
Hmm.
Is this is this the truth? 99% of the time, you're going to say no.
Right.
It's just a belief.
Right.
And
Or a story that we're
a
telling
story, yeah,
ourselves.
a story, narrative, a belief that you've told yourself, and that's something that I know you and I both work on with our clients is breaking that down, kind of poking at it a little bit. Let's dig into that. Is that true?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you were talking about a little bit about like limiting beliefs and conditioned beliefs. And is there anything else you want to mention on those? Because I feel like there's just so much um that stops people that has to do with the stories we're telling ourselves or the beliefs that we have.
I think the biggest one is, I'm not good enough. And like I said, that can literally stem from raising your hand in class and being wrong and being kind of laughed at, or, not smart enough. Those sort of things are big ones. And, or, a conditioned belief it would be in order to make a lot of money, you have to work hard.
I'm really
That's
stressed.
yeah, yeah, you have to, or depending on how you saw your family being, I come from a blue collar, my dad was a teacher, right? So I watched my dad put in tons of hours and hardly get paid anything, right? And so I grew up with that mentality of like, oh, I've got to do X, Y, and Z. I also believed that oh gosh, well, see, I've already worked through it, but it was like success equaled. Do you remember? I worked it through with you.
Oh, sacrifice.
Sacrifice, right? Success equaled sacrifice.
Yeah.
In order to be successful, I had to sacrifice a lot of stuff because that's what I watched my dad do.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a conditioned belief. And so really starting to take a look at, and that's what I'm talking about with the inner child stuff, really taking a look at, I grew up with great parents. My parents were high school sweethearts. I grew up in a pretty, relatively stable home. Of course, we have our own issues and stuff, but one of the things I really realized is this, you're too sensitive. I caught myself couple of years ago when my youngest son fell on his bike and I ran over and I was like, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. Because that's what my parents used to do to me. You're fine.
Right.
It's good. And my son turned around, I think he was 6 at the time, turned around, looked at me, and he goes, I am not fine. I'm hurt and I'm not okay. And I was like,
Oh,
okay.
oh
So
my gosh. Yeah.
that really hit me of, wow, that was a belief system I had
Right.
was when you get hurt, you got to be okay. You can't
Yes.
show, and I wasn't even aware of it until someone put my child put that in my face and was like, no, I'm not okay. Don't tell me I'm okay.
You're right.
And so we're not always even aware of some of this stuff until we start digging into it.
Hmm.
And so those are conditioned beliefs. And then our limiting beliefs are the stories we've created. You see people on Instagram, oh, that's the same job I do. Oh, they're smarter than I am.
Right.
I mean, they control so much. And that's, I think, why you were talking about 85+% is mindset. This is
Mhm.
the stuff you have to work on to I don't even, I hate using the word be successful, but what I mean by being successful is whatever success looks like for you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Thank you. Those are all really great examples. And I think that it's goes back again to just knowing knowing yourself and like you were saying at the very start, peeling back those layers
Yep.
and working on these things and how much it can really create for you in your
Yeah.
life when you do the work and you know how to do the work and you continue to do the work and grow.
Yeah.
Um, so is there anything else that you wanted to share in terms of just what some of that work looks like? Otherwise, I think we wanted to just mention like what you could really have, what you can really create and like what you've seen, your clients and what I've seen my clients, like the outcomes that they do have when they do all of this work and continue to.
Yeah, I think really the bottom line is you and I walk our clients through a journey of getting to a place where they can trust themselves, they can
Hmm.
trust their intuition and find their voice. And I
Yes.
think that's the biggest piece is really being able to peel all those layers away with the tools of all the stuff that you were talking about and I was talking about of supporting them and really allowing them. I mean, the way that I look at my journey with my clients is I am their support system. I'm in their corner, but we're walking this journey together.
Yeah.
And if they do the work, then they come out the other end of this. Like the client I had earlier this morning, she's in such an amazing place in her life right now where she's trusting, like she's taking big leaps and things and opening up her own consulting business and doing a lot of things that she's always wanted to do, but that she had to kind of peel all those layers away to be able to trust that this is truly her purpose. And now
Yeah.
she can feel it. Now she's like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. And this does light me up and I'm excited about it. And she can do it from a place that's in her best interest rather than a place of scarcity or rather than a place
Yes.
of fear or, all of these things.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to, again, to just, the more you learn about yourself, the more people around you change and the more you make an impact in the world.
Yeah, I agree. And that's really beautiful, like just that story about your client because she's going to it's going to just come easier. She's going to be able to trust herself because she's starting from a place of knowing herself
Yeah.
and being able to like she's done the work and continues to do the work and that's
Yep.
going to just help her so much as she's building whatever it is that she's building. So
Yep. Yeah.
beautiful. And just a few more things, I know we've been chatting for a bit, but when you do all of this work and you have these tools and you know what your ultimate like goal and desire is, you can feel just more aligned. You can have that intuition and really start to trust yourself. And so the steps don't feel so scary and the challenges don't feel so stressful. You can understand that it's always a learning process. It's always, seeing a challenge as an opportunity and not letting yourself be so scared and stressed out that you're dysregulated and you can't even move forward. Um, it's having more confidence and having more clarity and like just being able to continue to move forward. Um, so just think about again when Lisa was walking you through that at the beginning, like what those goals and desires are and how you could really be empowered and be the best version of yourself when you take care of yourself and start to heal yourself from within.
Yeah.
Um, and trust yourself. And like you said, finding your voice and finding that intuition and what that even means. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah. So before I get into, I wanted to just quickly share what we've been working on. Is there anything else you want to add to all of that?
No, I think you summed all of that up really well. Yeah.
Okay. So Lisa and I have actually been working on a group coaching program. It's called the Empowered Path, and it's really what Lisa was just saying. Like, we're here to hold your hand through the starting to the start line of maybe you are currently stressed or you're feeling a little overwhelmed or maybe you have a little bit of fear or imposter syndrome even of
Or lack of clarity.
yeah, where do you go from here? And you know that, your nervous system needs work. You know that your limiting beliefs is something that might be holding you back. So we're here to really, you said it really well in our master class, like break down that foundation and rebuild it to what you want and give you all the tools and the resources. And so what we've created is this really incredible group coaching program called the Empowered Path, and it is 10 weeks long. Plus we have a like 11th bonus week. We're going to be doing a Reiki healing session and everything that we were talking about in this whole episode, inner child work, uncovering those limiting beliefs, teaching you how to create a more holistic lifestyle where you're prioritizing your health, a lot on nervous system regulation. And we're going to be walking you through all of this with a group. We'll have that community piece. So we're all doing it together. You will have access to Lisa and I. So I'm just really excited to share this program with you all.
Yeah. I
Um,
think it's we've worked really hard on it, and I truly believe that this is a great program for people who are ready to just do the work.
yeah.
And having both you and I with both of our backgrounds is such a beautiful way to support people that are ready to embark on this part of the journey because they've got, lots of resources from us to help them really dive into this in a
Yeah.
very, very supportive way.
Yeah. So we're going to be having weekly calls as part of the program, and we're going to just be teaching you. We have um, a whole weekly breakdown of everything that we're going to be going through. So if you are interested, I will put the link in the show notes, but you could also go to newmoonholisticlife.com/path and find out all of the information on there. It has all of the details, everything we're going to be teaching you and going through. So if you are interested, you can find the information there or you can reach out to myself or Lisa. Anything else you'd like to add, Lisa? If not, I would love for you to share where people can find you.
No, I don't really have anything else to add. You can either find me on my Instagram, Tuthill Lisa, so Tuthill Lisa. So there's three L's in that. So you can reach out, you can DM me there. My website is www.lisatutthillcoaching.com. You can get a hold of me there. Either one of those places I think is probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put that information in the show notes as well. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast and having this really awesome conversation with me. I think that we provided a lot of value, so I hope that you all listening were able to take some really great things away from it.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. And I look forward to whomever is ready to take this journey with us.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. All right. Thank you.